Welcome to Beyond the Coverage. I'm Chris Horner. In today's edition, I want to cover the injury list on my first page of favorites. There's 6 riders on my first page, and 3 of them crashed all at the same time on stage 4 of the Basque Country. Primoz Roglic, Remco Evenepoel, Jonas Vingegaard. But the big guy, Wout van Aert, went down in the classics at Dwarsdorf-Vlaanderen. So I want to do a little bit of covering of Wout van Aert's recovery. And then, of course, I'm going to talk a little bit about Jay Vine, who went down in that stage 4 crash with the big-time favorites there, Primoz Roglic, Jonas, and Remco Evenepoel. I want to talk specifically a little bit about what Jay Vine's experiences will be while he's recovering, compared to, of course, Jonas, Primoz, and Remco Evenepoel, who are big-time favorites, and they're the leaders of their team, right? So there's a little bit more stress when we're talking about the leaders of big teams where the whole staff is built around those riders coming back because they need to win, right? When I won the Vuelta a España in 2013, I was more like a Jay Vine type rider, second page rider, not first page rider. When I won the Vuelta a España for that 3 weeks, I was certainly first page, but throughout my whole career, second page rider. I was quite a bit like Jay Vine was. And when I show you the picture of Jay Vine where he's out of the hospital, he's recovering, sitting on the couch, but he has his neck brace on, and he talks about it in his post where he's got to take it day by day. They're going to heal first, then they'll get back into it. But if he's not up on social media, don't worry, he's doing okay. They're going to work on the process, and once he gets a few more days here, recovery and stuff, he'll start figuring out what the plans are. And that's what a rider like Jay Vine can do. He can take more time. UAE team members would love to have Jay Vine back, right? There's no doubt about it. When we look at the Giro list with Tadej Pogacar, he has Rafael Majka there, and he's got some other helpers in the climbing stages like Grossschartner, but they would love to have Jay Vine back to start the Giro. But they're not stressed about Jay Vine coming back to start the Giro like they would be if Tadej Pogacar was out after he crashed at Liège-Bastogne-Liège last year and broke his wrist. That's a completely different stress put on the team when you're losing your number 1 rider. When you're losing the second rider, and like I said, I was that second rider just like Jay Vine, where I was in support role many, many times, riding for Clody, riding for Lance Armstrong, Levi Leipheimer, Cadel Evans, riding many times for Alberto Contador. So I was that rider that could always be second, sometimes first on the team, but usually second, third, or fourth best rider when we started the stage races, where you would love to have Chris Horner there backing you up if you were Alberto Contador or if you were Lance Armstrong for sure. But you didn't have to have Chris Horner because there's other guys on the team that fit that second page roster, especially if you're UAE team members. So Jay Vine can go into this rest period after crashing, assuming everything heals up nicely. He doesn't have to stress about it. He's under contract already for multiple years, and the team know they don't have to have him back in the race. They want to have him back in the race, but they don't have to have him back in the race. You have to have a rider like Tadej Pogacar back in the race, and that's what Primoz Roglic, Jonas, and Remco Evenepoel are going through, because they're going to have more stress of, like, if you can get it going, get it going. Jay Vine has the easy part to relax and say, well, I didn't make the Giro, I didn't make the Tour de France, I can still go to Spain. If he goes to Spain and rides good, hell, it's fantastic. If he doesn't ride good, he could ride good next season. It won't change his life any right now because he's under a multi-year contract. Every rider, I'm sure Jay Vine, just like myself, they want to come back into the very next race that they possibly can, the soonest one possible, but they don't have the stress of having to make it happen. Now, when we start looking at the other riders, Wout van Aert's already been riding his bike. We see pictures of his mountain bike out there where it looks like he was riding some roads on his mountain bike, so we know he's back on the bike. In one of his posts, he's making fun of how he used to talk about riders always having to put spacers under the handlebars. So he's not 100% yet, but he's back on his bike, and we got 70 days before the Tour de France. So the big guy's going to make the Tour de France, assuming everything heals up as it normally would for any athlete that's back on his bike at this point in time after the crash at Dwarsdorf-Vlaanderen. Wout's going to be fine. He's going to make the Tour de France if that's the decision that he wants to go to, Tour de France, and then focus on the Olympics. Remember, before the Olympics was his number 1 objective. I believe he's got to go to the Tour de France because there is nothing bigger than the Tour de France. When I did the Olympics in 2012, we had one of the guys from USA Cycling come over and give us a big speech about how important this Olympic road race would be, and it'd be the biggest experience we'd ever had in our lives. I'm sitting at the table when he's giving this to all of us. They're doing the 2012 road race there. And he's talking about this is going to be bigger than anything you've ever done. I start laughing. He looks over at me. I believe his name was John. John looks over at me and he goes, "What are you laughing about, Chris?" I go, "Come on, man. I'm over 40 years of age here. You're telling me that this is the biggest race I'm ever going to do. The Tour de France is the biggest you will ever do. I don't care what anyone else says. Wout van Aert's experience of doing the Tour de France in 2019 told him that when he started winning races right away at the Tour de France, his stardom just grew to epic levels for the Belgian rider. So certainly I believe we'll see him at the Tour de France. Now, Primož Roglic, he already got in the car, wasn't shipped off directly to the hospital by ambulance, but he did do some time at the hospital after the crash on stage 4 of the Basque Country. We know he was supposed to do Liège-Bastogne-Liège. He's going to skip that, but pretty certain Primož Roglic, preparation for the Tour de France, it's not going to be altered much. He's just changing a few races around where he would have done LBL. Now he's not going to do it. I bet Primož Roglic is fine and he'll be out training no problem. Now we'll go over to Remco Evenepoel, the other Belgian rider. Remco Evenepoel has posted up that he's been eating some ice cream, but he's recovering good. He's done some physio work. He's going to start riding the rollers, and then he's going to start moving outside. But everything I read here from Remco Evenepoel, the Belgian kid's going to be ready to go for the Tour de France and still focused on doing the Tour and, of course, focused on the individual time trial and the road race at the Olympics. Now, the next third rider, this one's a bit more complicated, Jonas Vingegaard. We see his director sportif put an article up in Cycling News 2 days ago where he says, we need to see in 2 weeks' time. Just like I had told you guys before on Beyond the Coverage, 2-week period, that's what Jonas Vingegaard right now through this point in time, he still has 2 weeks to recover. If he gets to the end of 2 weeks, things start flashing red if he's not back on his bike and he's not riding the home trainer. Doesn't need to be riding outside. Doesn't need to be doing 5 hours. Doesn't need to be doing 6 hours. Guys, in 2013 when I won the Vuelta a España, I missed 5 months of the season and I really didn't start riding until 5 weeks before Tour of Utah. When I got to the Tour of Utah, I had 2 very easy weeks of training and I had 3 solid, very intense weeks of training. Went to Tour of Utah, won a stage at Tour of Utah, wore the race leader's jersey, we won the team classification, and I finished 2nd overall. And that was about 12, maybe 14 days before that year's Vuelta a España began. And I remember I only needed about maybe 7 days after the Tour of Utah, recover a little bit from the Tour of Utah, maybe do a 7-week training period there, and then I would have been 100% the same kind of form that I went into on the very first day of the Vuelta a España. That was about 50 days that I needed to get ready. Right now we're 70 days out from the Tour de France starting, so Jonas has time. Assuming that he comes to this 50-day period mark and he's still thin, he hasn't been overeating, he hasn't put on any weight, nothing like that's been affected. If he comes in to these next 2 weeks and even a 3rd week, okay, the lights are flashing red like I told you after 2, but he really has about 20 days right now to where he has to be very careful with how he eats. If you can't train 100%, then you cannot gain weight because you have such a short period. And at the end of these next 20 days, we'll call them 2 weeks to 3 week period of time, if he can stay thin and he can start to get on the bike right away afterwards on the trainer, doesn't need to be doing 5-hour rides, but he needs to be getting back on the trainer, capable of doing 1-hour rides, just like his director sportif says in the article. He needs to be solid and be 100% recovered after he's been on the bike for that week or 2 so he can start riding the big miles and get in some solid training. About a month, 3 weeks at least, but I would say a month is much better before the Tour de France begins. But he needs to be on the bike at least a solid 50 days for sure, and completely pain-free and of course completely healed. That means his punctured lung is no longer giving him any problems. And when I punctured my lung in 2014, my lungs ever since have given me some problems, but I think they were more because I'd gotten sick on that stage 5 of the cobblestone in the Tour de France when we went over and we started in England, came back over to France. Stage 5, we did the cobblestones. A lot of us got sick, and I was sick for a long period after that. But I think it might have had something to do with the punctured lung that I'd gotten when I went through the tunnel in Italy and got hit. So Jonas needs to be 100% recovered for sure. But 50 days absolutely is necessary of training if he's going to come into the Tour de France. And remember, when he comes into the Tour de France, let's say he's not 100%. In the article, again, his director sportif France says, well, he's not going to want to do the Tour de France if he's not 100%. But do we really know exactly what 100% is? It's difficult to know. When he gets into the Tour de France, let's say he goes and rides at 95%, he could still ride through the first week, the first 9 days, and then see how it goes, see if he gets better. No one's going to hold Jonas Vingegaard accountable if he doesn't win this year's Tour de France. But if he doesn't start, the rider is going to know that any chance of winning consecutive Tour de France's, because he's already won 2 back-to-back. And if he wants the record of going up to 5 and 7 all back-to-back wins, because we know Lance Armstrong has 7, but we know there's some controversy there. Okay, I believe he has 7. So if you look at 5 and you're that kind of spectator, then you're going to look at 5. You're going to go, Miguel Indurain has 5 in a row. Jonas Vingegaard is going to want to be able to take that record too. So he's going to be striving, I'm sure, to come into the Tour de France if he's recovered. If you're not recovered, you're not recovered. There's nothing you can do. He's going to miss the Tour de France. But he has at least 2 weeks, and I agree 100% with his director sportif friends. He has at least 2 weeks of being still off the bike, assuming he stays easy on the calories and he's just as light as he was when he was winning at the beginning of the season here in 2024, because he was spectacular. And then he still has that 5 weeks, maybe even 6 weeks to get ready for the Tour de France. So that's my take right there. Now, one thing before I take off, I want to show you guys the picture here of UAE Team Emirates, Tadej Pogacar squad doing recon here of LBL. These knuckleheads, they're all dressed right? They got their clothing on. Everybody's got good gloves, good shoe covers, with the exception of Diego Ulissi. He doesn't have his gloves. It's training ride. I'm sure if he gets cold, he could put his gloves on. But one last thing, though, before I go, because these knuckleheads, they look like they got done doing flesh. They weren't dressed right. They froze out of the race. They're here in training. And it's been 10 years since I raced a bike professionally with Lamprey in 2014. And guys, even with all these marginal gains that they talk about and all the riders getting better and better, they still have to turn over here to Beyond the Coverage and the Butterfly Effect to get the most simple advice. UAE Team Emirates. Right here. $14, $15 back in the day, and this thing was probably bought in 2010 or something like that, maybe 2005, I don't know. It's that old. But if you look at the back of the inside here underneath on the fender, it's all dirty for a reason. UAE Team Emirates. Spend a few dollars. Put a fender on your bike when you're getting ready to go do a training ride. It will change your whole experience, and that's the reason why it's dirty on the underneath, but not dirty on the top, because guess what? It stops all the water and the dirt from the back tire there that's getting you most of the time wet, especially when you're in Europe, where it's going to rain a little bit, stop a little bit, rain a little bit, stop a little bit. Guys from UAE Team Emirates, put a fender on. I mean, this is the most basic amount of information I can give you, and I still got to put these tips up here on Beyond the Coverage because these young kids don't know the quality of putting a fender on your bike and how much quality better the ride's going to be after you have a fender on. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. I'll see you guys for LBL, where Tadej Pogacar is going to highlight the butterfly effect on tomorrow's race. I'm almost 100% guaranteed of that, but maybe I'm wrong. Tune in, like, and subscribe. I'll see you guys on the next edition real soon.